On Children by the poet Khalil Gibran. This is a presentation by Yusuf Fidel. Who was Khalil Gibran? Khalil Gibran was a Lebanese poet who moved to America, where he would become the third best-selling poet of all time behind William Shakespeare. He was born on January 6, 1883, in Bishari, Lebanon. He grew up in Bishari with the rest of his Maronite Christian family until he was 12 years old. At a young age, Gibran displayed an early artistic aptitude. In pursuit of a better life, his mother would move their family to Boston, Massachusetts in 1895. At age 15, he would return home to attend a Maronite school in Beirut. This is where Gibran developed his interest in poetry and even founded a student magazine. Gibran moved to New York City, USA in 1911, where he would further manifest his talent and interest for poetry. He would then go on to publish his most selling and most famous book, The Prophet, in 1923, and would unfortunately die from cirrhosis of the liver in 1931. Style of poetry. In his poetic novel, The Prophet, Gibran created a variety of poems in differing styles. He typically wrote poems in free verse and as sonnets. Khalil was heavily influenced by his own culture, religious traditions, and values when writing poetry and painting. His inspiration can be seen through his many references to God and the afterlife in his poem. His poem On Children was one of the sonnets he had written into his book. It is clear that the poet wrote this poem as a sonnet due to his use of iambic pentameter and one-line stanzas. This poem was also written in exactly 14 lines. Thanks to his use of the sonnet structure, each line is given a sense of rhythm, and as a result, the theme becomes much more memorable. The poem. On Children is a poem instructing parents and other legal guardians what they may and may not do when raising their children. This quote, "Your children are not your children." On Children is a poem that one of Gibran's largest points he makes throughout this poem is that although parents raise their children, they do not own them as a possession. The poet conveys his point using an oxymoron when he addresses parents. Gibran believes that although the children may be considered yours, they are not truly yours, and you do not own them. Two quotes from the poem include, "They come through you but not from you, and you may give them your love but not your thoughts." Gibran is strongly against parents persuading their children to share the same views as them. He believes that children should remain blank slates until the point in which they are capable of developing their own perceptions of the world around them. In the following stanza, Gibran illustrates his belief that legal guardians should never forcefully instill their thoughts and ideologies within their children. He believes that parents are simply the guides chosen by God for the child's life. Literary devices within On Children. "You are the bows." This is a metaphor. This line taken from the poem directly compares parents and bows. Parents must direct their children. The poet makes this comparison because he believes that bows are stable and reliable. He urges that parents act as bows do when raising their children. Parents should simply point their children in what they believe to be the right direction. The next line is a simile. "Your children, as living arrows, are sent forth." The direct comparison between children and living arrows using the term as. He believes that children are to be guided but inevitably reach their own destination. This simile is connected to the previous metaphor. Once the bow directs the arrow, it is on its own, as it seeks its final destination. The comparison between the children and the arrow illustrates the poet's beliefs that children should find their own way in life. The next literary device he used is personification. The concept of the word life does not have its own opinions, emotions, or thoughts. Therefore, through attaching these thoughts and emotions to life, he is personifying it. Connection to the lottery using literary devices. One of the literary devices the lottery uses in their story is personification, in the line, "The breeze caught them and lifted them off." This statement personifies the breeze by giving it the ability to catch things in a similar way humans do with their hands. The next literary device they use in the lottery is the black box symbolism. The decaying black box symbolizes the duration in which the lottery has been taking place. The villagers' reluctance to get a new box symbolizes their refusal of deviating in any manner from their sacred tradition. In On Children, the personification, "Life's longing for itself," attaches thoughts to the word or concept of life. And they use symbolism as well. Archer, bow, and arrows are the symbolism in On Children. The archer symbolizes God, the bow symbolizes the parents, and the arrows symbolize the children, all working together in the benefits of the children. Both these short fictions utilize symbolism and personification to develop multiple meanings to phrases in their literature. Connection to the lottery using themes. The theme in the lottery pertains to the imperceptive followers of traditions, and the theme in the sonnet On Children is to discourage parents from forcing their ideals upon their children. In this lottery quote, this quote depicts the duration in which the tradition has been going on for. It also represents how little the villagers truly care or understand about the tradition. They refuse to question the idea of the lottery and have little to no doubts about its functionality. They follow it blindly, tunnel-visioned by the thought of a hefty harvest. In the opposing quote, you may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. And On Children, the poet instructs parents to ensure that they do not attempt to control their children whatsoever. These themes contradict one another as mediums of leadership. The lottery displays the forced following of old traditions within a village, and On Children strives to prevent parents from forcing their traditions onto their children. So one of them acting and one of them preventing. The next connection is that these themes are also closely related as cause and effect. On Children is the cause because it is against older generations forcefully influencing younger ones, whereas the lottery is the effect if this was allowed, because it is an exaggerated demonstration of what can happen if older generations were able to do so. And the overall theme between both of these literary works are methods of leadership. They both display different methods of leadership within their literature. Thank you for listening to my presentation.